Hello? No, you're
What's going on, everybody? You are now tuned in to the PA Power Hour. Man, do we have a show for you tonight. We got all kinds of things going on. We got POWERade tomorrow. We got Mason Gibson on the line. I got Greg. I got Eric. I got my best friends with me. I mean, this is going to be a lot of fun, Eric. I'll kick it over to you first, Eric. I see you're wearing your POWERade shirt.
I do. I got the POWERade polo on there. I've been waiting an extra month to wear this thing. We're delayed a bit, but different venue, different time, but some great teams there, and really looking forward to getting to see all the action this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And Greg, I'll kick it back over to you. You don't have any POWERade on. You're just kind of plain Greg.
Yeah, just hanging out. Eric actually, I think, has been wearing that the entire month since it was supposed to start last month. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
All right, maybe.
Absolutely, probably. Well, we had a late guest come on, man. Eric texted me. He's like, "Hey, do you want to get Mason Gibson on?" I'm like, "Sure. If Mason wants to hang out and talk to us a little bit." And he was like, "Yeah, sure. Let's get him on." So, Mason, are you there? Can you hear us, brother? I don't know if you can hear us.
Maybe we're gonna have Mason.
Maybe we're gonna have Mason. It has you muted. Text Mason, Eric, and tell him he's muted. I don't know why. It looks like he can hear us, but I don't know if he can actually make it out that we're actually trying to talk to him. So we are eventually gonna get the kinks worked out, hopefully, and talk to Mason Gibson about the just stellar 120-pound bracket that will be going down at POWERade in just a day. Tomorrow it starts off. Greg, let me ask you first. You were able to look through a lot of the seeds because a lot of schools have ended up having to pull out because of COVID concerns or whatever it may be. we lost Notre Dame, Green Pond, we lost Burrow, Connellsville. There's a number of teams that canceled kind of early on in the week, like on Monday. So, what were your thoughts, Greg, when you looked at the updated list of wrestlers for the POWERade tournament?
Well, one weight class I was really excited to see how it all went down was 152 pounds, and despite losing, those teams, I'm still excited for 152 pounds. There are just so many talented wrestlers in that weight. It's going to be a lot of fun. You have Mason's brother, Eric Gibson. He's coming in at the number 2 seed. You got AHR at number 1, Rocco Welsh, Ty Linsenbigler. It's just a fun weight class to see.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, and there's several weight classes where I look at, and it's not. So I'll put it to you this way: it's not of it's not the POWERade of years past, right? It's not the POWERade that we're used to. It doesn't feel quite like POWERade, but a lot of things this year don't quite feel right themselves. So the bottom line is we're wrestling, right? And you look at some of the weight classes. Yeah, there may not be the depth that we're necessarily used to seeing in years past, but man, there's a heck of a lot of talent. And you kind of mentioned it, that 152-pound bracket. I'm looking at 120 pounds, even 215, 285, right, with Nick Feldman and his teammate Colton Deary, and you have also Isaiah Vance in there, Dayton Pitzer. So there's a lot of guys there that just star power. You got number 1 ranked wrestlers in the nation. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see. It looks like Mason, can we hear you now?
I can hear you.
All right, perfect. We got Mason Gibson on the line. Mason, what's going on, man? Where are you at? You hanging out? It looks like you're working out.
Yeah, I just got done working out at the compound.
Okay, you feel so. Let me start. You're a freshman. We talked to you at Midwinter Mayhem, and you were kind of like, yeah, I had to prove myself. We're like, come on, we all know who Mason Gibson is. Now this time you get the number 1 seed at POWERade. Were you kind of surprised that you got the number 1 seed?
I mean, I was a little surprised, but not as surprised. But I came in here as a freshman, getting seeded first, and I was surprised about that. Considering, on the seeds, they have like all the accomplishments like states and regionals, and you just see my name and there's nothing there.
It's literally just says Mason Gibson, Bishop Court, and that's it, right? Doesn't have like Super 32 champion, Super 32 runner up, surge champion. It just kind of says, hey, 5-time PJW champion, right? It doesn't. So, but then you have a guy like Mac Church, right? Mac Church is there. He was a POWERade champion last year at 106 pounds. You were probably going to have Brent Unger until Notre Dame had to back out. But, is that a lot of pressure on you? Do you feel like, hey, that's, is that a lot of pressure for a freshman like yourself?
No, not really. I'm going to go in there like any other tournament. I don't really care. I'm going there. Wrestle anybody. It doesn't matter who I wrestle. I'm going there with my mindset, score points, and win. That's my mindset every match.
Yeah, and we saw you at the Midwinter Mayhem, and it seemed like that game plan worked out really well for you. You had some tough opponents, right? You had come off a Super 32 runner-up finish, and that was of course, after you won it as an 8th grader. But now you're you kind of have a bullseye on you, right? I mean, everyone knows everyone knows it's Mason Gibson. Everyone knows, but it seems like now you're kind of just flourishing in that pressure. It's not a fluke. The Super 32 title as an 8th grader wasn't a fluke, and here you are entering your first POWERade tournament. It's got to be pretty exciting for you. Oh,
I'm pumped. I can't wait.
And talk about you being able to do this with your brother Eric, right? And I know Eric just had a tough announcement to make, to say that he's going to miss the postseason because of the transfer and the eligibility, but you get to wrestle with him in what's going to be his last tournament of the year. That's got to feel pretty special to see your older brother compete. And Greg and I were just talking about this in a loaded 152-pound bracket. So, I mean, you both have your work cut out for you at POWERade.
Yeah. It's his last tournament, and I'm very excited to wrestle with him. We're going to go out there and do our thing. We're going to put it out. We're not scared to go out there and put it on the line, and I'm ready Sadly, he can't compete in the postseason, but because it's his last tournament, we're gonna go out there and put on a show, and can't wait.
Absolutely. And Eric, do you remember when Mason at Midwinter Mayhem when he did something? It looked like a WWE move. Do you remember that,
Yeah,
Eric?
there was some kind of like it was almost a hip toss. Like Mason was off his feet, I think, and he had Reinsel on his like his hip,
Right.
and it was just a crazy toss situation out of bounds that had us both kind of our jaws just dropped.
Like Mason loves to do cartwheels. He likes to. You just look like you're out there rolling around having fun, and just some interesting positions. Is that what you mean by put it on show? You're gonna get into some positions that are unorthodox and kind of see which different ways you can score points.
I mean, whatever comes. Just go out there and whatever happens. I ain't scared to do anything.
I love it, Mason, and man, we look forward to seeing you in action for the second time this year after Midwinter Mayhem in a pretty tough 120 bracket. So, Mason, we appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us here tonight on the eve of a big tournament for you. So go rest up and look forward to see you tomorrow, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow, okay?
Yes, no problem. See you tomorrow.
All right. So that was Mason Gibson. I'm glad we finally got to get him on, Eric and Greg, because he's a hoot, man. I love talking to Mason, and kind of like what he said. He's like, I'm not scared. I can score from any position, and you kind of see that in the way he wrestles. I'm really looking forward to it. 120 pounds. Mac Church is there. Kind of the headliner is Mac Church there with Mason Gibson. You got Jacob Haupt as well from Canon Mac. AJ Staten from Faith Christian Academy. The one guy I'm really looking forward to see is Nick O'Neill from Malvern Prep. He's a freshman, highly touted freshman. I actually competed at the Super 32 at 106 pounds, lost to Vinny Kilkiri, but he's up some weight at 120 pounds, so looking forward to him. But before we start getting to 120, let's bring it back around to 106, because if we don't, we're going to be in for a really long night, and I want to get some sleep before POWERade happens. And Eric, I don't know if you heard when you were texting Mason or not, but Greg and I were talking about how it's not the POWERade of years past. We definitely are missing some depth, right, and star power. But you look at the top tier guys, the nationally ranked guys, they're here, right? You have Malvern Prep and Waynesburg, two of the best teams not only in the state but the nation. So you're going to have some really good competition, regardless if you have teams backing out or not.
Oh yeah, and then you throw in a couple of the Ohio teams. I mean, we all know that Pennsylvania's depth alone, whenever you combine AA, AAA, and a prep school like Malvern Prep, is going to be incredible. But then you bring in some of those tough Ohio schools, some of the out-of-state teams. I mean, it's still a really tough tournament, and I think you probably argue that it's the toughest high school tournament in the country this season because of everything that we faced with COVID, that there just aren't the big tournaments going on. We didn't have an Ironman. We didn't have a Beast of the East. So, I mean, POWERade's kind of the last one standing as far as the really big tournaments that we are used to seeing.
Yeah, and it should be noted, this is the 2020 POWERade, so we're still clinging on to the year 2020 as miserable as it was. We're going to call this the 2020 POWERade. Hopefully, we're going to get another POWERade here in 2021 as well in December. But let's start out at 106 pounds. So seeds have changed; they potentially could change again. It's been one of those flexible positions where tournament director Frank Volcano's had to make some changes on the fly, which he's had to do ever since trying to plan this back in the fall. We had Notre Dame Green Pond had to pull out, Burrell, Connellsville, General McLean earlier this week, Brunswick, Ohio, Pine Richland. There's a number of teams that just unfortunately aren't going to be able to compete this weekend, and there could be others, right? Depending on how things shake out, but it is slated to get started tomorrow, so hopefully nothing sneaks up to us before tomorrow. 106 pounds, you have a state champion in Brandon Wenzel from Montoursville. He is your top seed. Tyler Chappell, a sophomore from Seneca Valley, is your second seed. Andrew Binney from Canon-Mac, who I got to see last night when Waynesburg wrestled Canon-Mac. He's a very, very solid freshman. He's there. Austin Neal from Walsh Jesuit is your fourth seed. Louis Gill from Hickory, a guy that I'm pretty high on, currently number 2 in the state in AA, is in there at the 5th seed. Tanner Spalding from LaSalle, Ohio, Jared Johnston from Moeller, Ohio, and Jack Consiglio from Malvern Prep. That rounds out your top 8. So, Greg, let me ask you first. Andrew Binney, you got to see him last night as well. He looked really good against Kai Sheptick, but Tyler Chappell, he's down there at 106. He's a guy who last year did well at the POWERade tournament. I believe he went 2-2 or 3-2 and knocked off some pretty big name guys. What do you look at when you see 106 here, Greg?
I always love 106 because that's when you see guys really make a name for themselves. You got so many young freshmen coming in wanting to, making a great impression. And there's a number of guys who are really unseeded who could come in and pull some upsets. You talked about those top 8, and Andrew Binney looks solid, but he didn't get to his offense too much, right? He and Sheptick, I think because of the fact they know each other pretty well, didn't really open up too much, last night in their match. But in addition to Sheptick, who's not seated in this one, but then you also have a couple of guys in the AA ranks, Parker Senapel from Burgestown, Jack Gonzalez from Quaker Valley. I'm just excited to see those two guys as well to see if they can get into that top 8 mix too. So there's a lot of wrestlers who are going to go head-to-head, and it's really toss-ups as to who's going to come out on top.
Yeah, I would agree with you, but this is going to give someone like Eric, who does Southwest Regional Rankings, a good idea of where these guys stack up, right? You talked about Parker Senapal, Jack Gonzalez. I personally want to see what Louis Gill is able to do because he's a junior high state runner-up. He is a guy who he's undefeated this year, so he's been doing nothing but winning this year. I'm pretty high on him. I know. Him and Landon Bainey have gone back and forth, but I think those two at 2 and 3 are right there on the heels of Brandon Wenzel. So Eric, let me ask you, what do you expect out of a guy like Louis Gill, and what do you think these other Southwest Regional guys are going to be able to bring?
Well, you kind of took my thunder there. The thing that I'm really looking for is Louis Gill, and I want to see how he stacks up in this weight class. We know Wenzel, we know Chappell, we've seen Binney. So this will be my first time to get a chance to see Louis Gill. So I think that's an exciting thing. And like you said, then for me, looking at Southwest region, it is a good chance to see Parker Senapal, see Jack Gonzalez, and see how these guys stack up, because there are some known quantities in here, as Greg said, with 106. Especially this early in the season, this is where there are a lot of guys that we haven't been able to see yet. They're freshmen coming up. They're just getting their first opportunity on varsity. So it's really exciting to see how that's going and how they pan out against some of these known commodities.
Yeah, and there's several of those known commodities that we talked about with Brandon Wenzel last year at the POWERade tournament. He was 6th at 106 pounds. Vinny Kilkeary was 8, so they both went on to win a state title, right? Which is crazy, and that 106-pound bracket last year was pretty stacked. You had Mac Church in the finals against Briar Priest. Mac Church just kind of blew him away. I think it was a 9-0 decision or major decision. But Wenzel, I know a lot of people are surprised that he's down to 106 already, but it is late January. He was 4-0 this year. He was 46-7 last year, 6th at POWERade last year, state champion last year, beating Callan Bowman from Chestnut Ridge. I think clearly he's the top dog, but guys like Andrew Binney, Louis Gill, Kai Sheptick, and all the other freshmen that we mentioned can probably hang with him and push him. Tanner Spalding from Ohio is also a freshman. Same with Jared Johnston. And Walsh Jesuits' Austin Neal is a junior, so kind of the older one of the ranks here. He was a district qualifier last year in Ohio. And of course they lost their state championship there. So another guy I look for, Rocco Fertilli from Northern New York. He's a freshman, 5-2 on the year. He was on our top incoming freshman report. I agree with you, Greg. This is where we get to see a lot of those new faces, new names, and put to the test real fast. So I'm really looking forward to 106 and to see if we can finally sort out a little bit of this. I would have liked to see some other freshmen in that list, but hey, we're still going to get to see a lot of really good wrestlers there at 106 pounds. 113 pounds, Vinny Kilkeary is your top seed. He is a returning state champion, but as I mentioned earlier, last year he was 8th at the POWERade. Now he had some good wins there. He beat Nick Allison at the POWERade last year, and again, it was a deep weight class. He is ranked number 1 in the state currently right now at 113 pounds in AAA. But then you have Callan Bowman from Chestnut Ridge. He's undefeated on the year. He's a sophomore. He was a state runner-up last year, and he is ranked number 1 in the state currently in AA. Eric, Callan Bowman, can he pull a pretty big win here and beat a guy who's nationally ranked in Vinny Kilkeary?
I mean, first you got to get there. As with POWERade, we've seen it before. There's no guaranteed route to the finals. I mean, I don't know too much about Link being a prep kid and Fry from Ohio. So, well, I guess Fry would be on the other side. But, a 3 seed there, I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, Bowman was tested at the Monroeville earlier this year. We saw at the Midwinter Mayhem, he had an Ohio kid that he really had to push to get a win. And I think that's good that you get pushed right away early on, kind of burn out the lungs, get that 6-minute test that you really need. So I think that's a good thing for him. But, we'll have to see and see if he can get to Kilkeary in the finals.
And Greg, let me kick it over to you because Kilkeary had a loss this year. He lost to Chad Ozias. They were up at 120 pounds. Are you surprised to see Kilkeary still at 13, or is this where you think he's probably going to settle in at?
Yeah, it's really hard to say at this point. I think he may settle in right here because you figure he bumped the 120 to Resto Ozias, so he's got that number 1 ranking. I guess it just depends where he's at as far as weight. But really, I mean, this weight class here at 113 isn't the deepest weight class at the POWERade tournament. So you could say these two are on a collision course. One guy that I'm really excited for, Joe Simone of Waynesburg. We've gotten to see him a couple of times here this season, and he was super impressive against Brandon Damai of Cannon McMillan on last night, and he just looks strong for the weight class. He's a little shorter, but he's stout, and he's physical. He's in your face. I'm excited to see how he does. I think he's going to pull a couple upsets, and he's going to be somebody who's going to make a name for himself here.
Kind of like I stole Eric's thunder here. You just stole my thunder because Joe Simone, last night, Brandon Damai, who's a good wrestler, and he did whatever he wanted with him. He had his way, right? And we've seen him several times this year. We saw him up at Kiski. Man, for a freshman, his mat sense and his mat awareness is so good. He has high pace. He moves very quickly. He's always moving his hands and feet. So he's doing everything that you tell a young wrestler to do, but hardly any of them actually do it. He does it. And I agree with you, Greg. I think he's going to come in here and really turn some heads. I think he's probably going to upset several wrestlers. And I would not be surprised to see him top 4 in this weight class. As you said, it's not the strongest, it's not the deepest weights, right? Vinny Kilkeary, obviously, and Bowman. But Tommy Link, I really like him as well. Last year he placed at the Ironman and the Beast. He was 3rd at National Preps at 106 pounds. Last year he was 3-2 at POWERade at 106 pounds. So a guy who has been there before, so to speak. He was 42-4 or 40-8 last year as a freshman. So I'm excited to see Tommy Link. I think he's going to push the pace with a lot of these guys. Nolan Fry from Walsh Jesuit. I believe he is a junior. Yeah, he's a junior. He was a state place winner in Ohio in 2019, placing 3rd qualifier last year, but of course season got canceled. Justin O'Neill from Hickory, a guy that maybe not a ton of people are familiar with, but he's in the state rankings at number 15. And as you mentioned, Greg, Damai coming in at 22. But Simone, I'm pretty big on him. I have him at number 11 in the state. And of course, Antonio Giordano from Kiski is the A seed there. He comes in at number 24 in the state. I would say after the 2 big guns with Kilkeary, Bowman, and I'll even throw Link in there. After those, it definitely, without knowing Fry too well, or even Landon Duncan from Ohio, Chalker, Ohio, it's hard to say exactly who's going to sneak in here, but I think we're going to see some names pop in that we're not necessarily expecting to, considering the lack of depth, if you will. And I'll kick it over to you, Eric.
I think that as you said, you've got the not quite as deep as some of the weight classes that we're used to, and so, but like you said, a guy like Joe Simone, where's he gonna fit in the bracket, and who's he gonna face off with? I mean, I don't think you want him on your side of the bracket if you're a seeded guy. I mean, you don't want to drop him in there, if you're on the bottom half of the bracket and you're Bowman and Link, and now all of a sudden you got a Simone in there as well, that gets pretty brutal.
Yeah, that you're right, and those are the the freshman killers that like Cody Weirchach as a freshman came in and just was like destroying all these seeded wrestlers. And I was like, who the heck is that? And some people knew him, hardcore fans knew him, but yeah, those freshmen are always they can be tricky to place in the seedings. 113 has some big names, but man, does 120 as well. So let's go up to 120 pounds, where Mason Gibson, the freshman from Bishop McCourt, who we just had the pleasure of talking to, he's your top seed. And I got to say, like Mason, I was a little surprised that he earned that top seed, especially because of the fact that, Mac Church is a returning POWERade champion. That weighs pretty heavily when Frank Volcano and his team are looking at the seeds. But, you can't argue with what Mason has done thus far, even before high school, right? You don't win the Super 32 as an 8th grader and then finish second as a freshman and not, be in that top tier. I think you look at between him and Church, maybe Church got slighted a little bit, but they're still, this is still going to be a weight class where, these two are kind of at the top, but I'm excited to see what comes in, the rest of the way, because as Mason will tell you, he's not going to take anyone lightly. Eric, when you look at this, what do you see as potential landmines for either one of these wrestlers with Mac Church or Mason Gibson?
Well, you mentioned it earlier. Nick O'Neill is the guy that isn't even seeded that I want to see how he does in this weight class. I mean, obviously, you've got the seeded guys that are potential roadblocks to getting to a finals for either of the top 2 seeds. But Nick O'Neill is the guy that I've heard a lot about and really want to see what he's all about and which side of the bracket he ends up on.
Yeah, I would agree with you. He's a long wrestler. He's tough from top. And I agree with you. I think he's going to cause some issues to whoever he gets. Greg, when I look at this and, looking at it from a War Up perspective, there's a lot of WPO wrestlers here. Obviously, Church, Haupt, Swedish, Rodriguez, and also Klingensmith and Lieben. I look at, this is kind of like to figure out the pecking order at Whippeals, because remember, it's not very long until we're going to be seeding the sub-sectional and the sectional tournament. So, a guy like Hunter Swedish, a senior for Seneca Valley, he's been on the cusp several times before. Can he get the job done? But man, you got, Rodriguez from Carlington, you got Klingensmith from Kiski, who I thought looked good at Midwinter Mayhem, and same with Ethan Lieben. He wrestled Mason Gibson tough. Remember that, Eric, at Midwinter Mayhem? We kept on saying, man, he's not going away. So Greg, what do you expect from these Whippeal wrestlers here? Jacob Haupt, I thought he wrestled Church well last night in the first match of the dual meet.
Yeah, I mean, those two always wrestle each other close. And I was thinking about that. I was like, I would expect Mac Church to open this up a little bit, but Haupt always wrestles him tough. I mean, they're always a close score. And I think it's just because of the familiarity with one another. They've wrestled so many times in their career. But yeah, this is it should be a lot of fun for the WPIL side of things, because there's a number of guys in there, even some guys down below who haven't really been tested yet. Gavin Suika from Burgestown, a couple other good guys as well. So you're going to see a lot of WPIL focus here in this weight class, I think, after you get over the top 2. And I don't think it really matters which one you seed, 1 or 2, Gibson or Church. I mean, I think they're going to be on a collision course for one another. But I think this is the tournament where you can really stand out, whether it's Hunter Swedish, Ryan Klingensmith, Ethan Lieben. This is your tournament. You got the top 2, but go out and make a name for yourself to be that guy in the WPIL outside of Mac Church at 120.
Yeah, I agree with you. Him and Haupt just seem to wrestle close all the time. And don't forget, Haupt was 7th here last year at the POWERade at 106 pounds. He beat Vinny Kilkiri in that 7th and 8th place match. Of course, Vinny would go on to win a state title. Jacob Haupt never even made it to the state tournament. So Haupt is a returning POWERade medalist, finishing 7th. Church was 1st. Swedish last year was 3-2 at the POWERade. Luke Passarelli from Norwin was 2-2. Lieben was 2-2 at 113, and Klingensmith was 0-2 at 113. So, I agree with you. There's a lot of names here that I'm looking forward to. The one that we didn't mention that I have to is Nick Jones from West Allegheny. Now, West Allegheny has been they got shut down 3 different times this season. They have not wrestled one competition yet. they probably don't even they have just barely enough practices probably to wrestle in the season. But Nick Jones is a guy who I've heard a lot about for years out of West Allegheny. I'm excited to see him. I'm so high on him. I have him number 25 in the state at 0-0 as a freshman. So, clearly that tells you what I think of him. But kind of like Nick O'Neill, this is a guy who I expect to see, upset some wrestlers and really come out strong. He's got to be hungry. My gosh, he hasn't wrestled in months. So I'm excited to see him, Nick Jones, at 120 pounds. So let's go up to 126 pounds, where we have a couple big names and a couple guys that are looking to really make a name for themselves and earn their first POWERade title. First one is Joey Fisher from South Park. Joey Fisher, number 1 in the state. Last year was a state runner-up in that very epic finals match with Gary Steen. Last year at the POWERade tournament, Joey Fisher was 5th at 120 pounds. But your boy, Eric, Spencer Barnhart, the mini Nick Feldman, he's here. I think I do not want to draw him if I'm Fatoris or even Santa Paul from Burgestown. I do not want to be seeing Spencer Barnhart across the line for me.
Jeff, you don't want to draw him if you're you.
Yeah, true. Fact.
I mean, the kid is stacked for a 126 pounder. I mean, he's huge. Yeah, we were so impressed by him at the Midwinter Mayhem, and this is going to be a really fun weight class. I mean, we talked about not having great depth or the usual POWERade depth that we're used to, but man, this one, you got Ethan Bergink as a 4th seed.
Yeah, state champ.
And Luke Simcox is a guy that I can't wait to see in action. I know he's got a couple wins over Cooper Gillum already. That he's a guy that is. Did they seed deeper in this one? I see there's 16 seeds there.
I don't know if they. Well, I think they just seeded deeper to just in case anything should happen with any of these other ones. But you look at and I would agree with you. There's a lot of depth here. So the top 8. Very tough. Nolan Moore from Moeller. Joey Senapal is 7th. Sam Cartella from Western Reserve Academy is 6th or 5th. And Xander Fatoris from Waynesburg, who is a guy who we've seen several times this year. But, I don't want to say we haven't seen him tested because he wrestled Carter Dybert tough. But can he really come in and put Pennsylvania on notice? I think Ethan Bergnick as well is a guy who's looking to get back because, remember, he lost to Barnhart at the Midwinter Mayhem. He's a state champ last year at the POWERade tournament. Get this. So last year at the POWERade tournament, Ethan Bergnick went 1-2 at 120 pounds. That's how tough POWERade is. A state champion goes 1-2 at the POWERade tournament. Joey Fisher, I think, is in the driver's seat. He's the only one at 126 pounds that comes into national rankings by Matt Scouts. He's number 13 in the nation at 126 pounds. Dustin Norris from LaSalle is a guy I've seen several years in a row because they went to Escape the Rock a couple times. He's a 2-time Ohio State finalist, and I know he was at least a 1-time state champion. POWERade or Ironman place winner. I think he was 4th at the Ironman. So you're talking about a guy that it's a senior who has placed at some of the best tournaments in the nation. That is Dustin Norris. I'm excited to see how he is in that mix. But look at all the wrestlers down in the bottom that you're saying, man, like you said, Simcox from Central Mountain. Luke's a freshman, currently ranked 10th in the state. Ty Waters from West Allegheny. You heard me say about Nick Jones. They have not even wrestled yet. He was a state qualifier last year as a freshman, number 8 in the state currently. Ethan Toth from Forest Hills, again, a guy who's a state qualifier, number 9 in the state. Ross Dahl from Chestnut Ridge. Connor Saylor from Hickory, number 8 in the state. These are a ton of guys here that are outside the top 8 that are really going to push for top 8 finishes, Eric.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of craziness in this one. Some of these weight classes, I think the seeds will hold up pretty well. I'm not sure at 126. I mean, there's just so much depth in here that I think you could see a couple of upsets, even though we might not really see them as too big of an upset. Because like you said, some of these guys, you've got state qualifiers sprinkled throughout the bracket. You've got state place winners. You've got a state champ seeded fourth. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that could happen in the next 2 days at 126.
Yeah, and 126, the returning medalist here, Joey Fisher was fifth last year at 120. Spencer Barnhart was fourth at 113. So Barnhart, I think that's what got him above Norris in the seedings, because he placed at the POWERade last year, top 4. Ross Dahl was 8th last year at 126, so he returns to that weight class, and he's not even in the top 8. Toth was 2-2. Again, Bergnick was 1-2. So, and look at all the other names here. Connor Saylor, right? A guy that I think, is going to have a good tournament. Kobe Burkett. You have Blake Rayner from Trinity. Sean Paul O'Donnell from Malvern Prep. He's a guy I'm looking to and I do love the fact that Frank Volcano is allowing multiple entries for teams. And I know at first it wasn't probably going to happen, but now, with teams backing out, he's allowing 2 from each team. And, there's quite a number of schools in here that are going to have 2 guys that are going to be pushing to get on the podium. One guy I forgot to mention at 106 was Connor Smith from Seneca Valley. He beat Kai Septic from Waynesburg at the Kiski Duels. He's in there with Tyler Chappell. So, you could have 2 guys at the same school placing in the tournament. So, Greg, let me shift it over to you, because the WIPIO has a lot of representation here with Senepal, Fatoris, obviously Bergnick, but who else do you see as a guy to keep an eye on?
Yeah, you didn't really mention Xander Faturas, and he's a guy who looks so quick, and he's somebody I'm excited to see wrestle some of these top guys, because we haven't seen a lot of it yet from him. So I'm just really excited to see how he does in this tournament. But you stole my thunder a little bit with Ty Waters. I mean, he's a guy who beat Mac Church.
Yeah,
last
in the
year.
sectional finals last year.
That's right. And he makes it to the state tournament, got upset, by Kilkiri, I believe. So he's just one of those guys who's making his debut, and he's going to be coming in unseeded outside the top 8. He's going to be making some noise. Blake Rainier as well from Trinity. And then you mentioned all the different guys from AA, from Toth to Dahl to Connor Saylor. I mean, there's just a lot of depth within this weight class. It may not have that clear cut. I mean, you got Joey Fisher, you got Spencer Barnhart, but you just got to have a lot of depth as well here.
Yeah, ton of depth there at 126 pounds. And it does not go away when we go up to 132 pounds. And Dylan Chappell from Seneca Valley, 2-time state runner-up. He's a senior heading to Bucknell. He is your number 1 seed. Jackson Arrington from Forest Hills was a state champion 2 years ago, was 3rd last year. A guy who we thought, Eric and I definitely thought he looked older and more mature at the Midwinter Mayhem. He doesn't look like the young Jackson Arrington from 113 pounds 2 years ago. He looks, like he's growing up, looks stronger. I think there's probably one of the more exciting matches should this happen, but there's a lot of other guys that I think are going to play the spoiler here. You look at the depth here at 132. Again, it's not necessarily guys that you're like, oh man, he's definitely going to be in the mix, but you have a lot of outside guys that I think are going to push the pace, like Briar Priest, for example, from Hempfield area. He beat Nate Roth from Latrobe in a duel recently. I thought Nate Roth was a guy, and I still believe Nate Roth is a guy who's going to challenge for a WIPIO title, against Chappell at 132 pounds. But then you have names like Cade Wernzenberger from Meadowbrook Christian. He's a guy who last year didn't make it to the state tournament, was in a loaded 106-pound bracket. He's ranked 9th in the state right now. You have a lot of depth here at 132 pounds. Eric, what jumps off the page at you? Because, I look at this and I say Jackson Arrington, kind of a year that he missed the POWERade last year, if you remember that. We were unfortunate we weren't able to see him. But I kind of look at this as like the coming out party for Jackson Arrington for 2021.
Yeah, I know I've heard great things, and we always hear guys are doing great in the room and all that, but I have heard that he's made significant gains during the shutdown period. During that time, he really wasn't able to get out too much and be seen and get those results that we could say, okay, we've seen him really take a next step. But I have heard that he's been phenomenal, in the over the summer, over the fall, and now just ready to showcase that. And he's a guy that is still uncommitted. I know I've talked to him a couple times. He's looking to take some visits to actually get on campus before he makes a decision. So he's being talked to by some pretty big schools, as I understand it. And this is his chance to continue to cement that legacy and really establish himself as one of the top guys in the country. Because I'll be the first to admit, I've been guilty, even in my own backyard. They're with all the other guys that have been in the Forest Hills program, the Gibsons, and those types of things. He hasn't gotten as much attention as those guys in some cases. And I mean, he's a 2019 state champ, so he's certainly deserving of all those accolades. But somehow, as a state champ, he's still found a way to kind of fly under the radar almost.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very often, especially in Pennsylvania. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. Sometimes it feels like maybe Jackson Arrington doesn't get the due diligence that I think he may deserve. You look at and I don't want to shy away from Greg, but I'm just looking at the outside the whippeal here. Connor Pierce from Harbor Creek. He was a guy who I had number 3 in the state at 138 pounds. He drops to 132 here for the POWERade tournament. He's a 2-time state medalist. He finished 7th twice. I think he's going to be in there battling. Briar Priest, as I mentioned, was a POWERade finalist last year, lost to Mac Church in the finals. He comes in ranked currently number 8 in the state. Taylor Weaver from Central Mountain was a state qualifier last year for Central Mountain. He's 8-1 this year, currently ranked 11th in the state. Let's not forget Zach Whitmer from St. Joseph's Academy. And Eric, I see you shaking your head because he's a Columbia commit, 3-time state medalist. Previously at the POWERade, he had placed. He was 2-2 last year at 138. Of course, Chappell was 3rd last year at 120 after getting upset by Aiden Lewis. Priest was 2nd. Whitmer was 2-2. Nate Roth was 3-2 last year. Eric, you look at Zach Whitmer. Are you kind of surprised that he got seated where he did? Did you think he would be a little bit higher?
Yeah, I am. I mean, he seems like he's been around forever at this point. Zach's a guy that has just been there, and they've wrestled in so many big tournaments. This is going to be nothing new for him. I do think a 7 seed is kind of low for a guy like Zach Whitmer, and I think he's a guy that could definitely pull some upsets and make some noise in this tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I don't think it's necessarily. Maybe it's not disrespect because look at the guys that are here, right? I mean, you have a POWERade runner-up in Briar Priest. I get that. Connor Pierce, 2-time state medals. I get that. Christian Coleman from Germantown Academy. He was 3rd at National Preps last year. He hasn't wrestled yet this year. In fact, I don't know if any Germantown Academy wrestlers has, but their head coach is Josh Jeva. Who we're big fans of here on PA Power. He was involved and he's still involved with the Penn RTC, former Council Rock South state champion and former Iowa wrestler. So you got a good guy that's leading the program there. I look at this and I see a couple names quickly jump off the page. And Eric Alderfer from Faith Christian, he came in ranked 7th at 138 pounds. Also, Nathan Rickards from Malvern Prep. Joe Youngblood will not shut up about this guy. Joe Youngblood loves him, and he came up through Owen J. Roberts. He's at Malvern Prep. He's a guy who I've heard nothing but good things out of the room from, and I know, Eric, you said that. We always hear good things, but, I heard he is doing very, very well for a freshman, so I would not be surprised to see him along with teammate Josh Varango, who was a state qualifier last year out of District 1, if they make some noise. Greg, you look at the whippeal, it's going to be tough sledding, in my opinion, for the whippeal here, outside of, Nate Roth and Briar Priest, and, of course, Dylan Chappell.
Well, let's not forget one more name that we haven't talked about, Colton Stone King.
True.
I know I've been talking a lot about Waynesburg in the show so far, but Colton Stone King just hasn't been able to find a weight class to show what he's able to do. He's always been behind guys, guys like Rocco Welsh and, Cole Hammett. So now he has that opportunity to shine here at 132 pounds, and he's looked solid throughout the season so far. So he's going to come in unseeded. He's going to have to prove himself against a lot of big names. But, you look at, you have Chappell, you have Briar Priest, but I expect good tournament from both Colton Stone King as well as Nate Roth.
Yeah, and I don't know how it slipped my mind. Maybe it's because he didn't wrestle last night. He got a forfeit. And but Colton Stone King is a guy who definitely got the attention of some of the national rankers at the Super 32 when he knocked off some nationally ranked guys there. And I agree with you, Greg. You look at what Stone King has been able to do in his career. He hasn't had a weight class, as you had mentioned. He's now at 132 pounds, where he really looks good. And he wrestled Dylan Chappell at the Kiski Duels. Wrestled him tough. Chappell is just very. He's a senior. He knows how to close out matches.
He's hard to score on.
He's very hard to score on, right? But I think Stone King is right in there. I think he's right in there with the rest of them. I think he's going to, play spoiler to a lot of these, guys that are in the top 8 here. So if I'm Stone King, I'm hey, that's fine. Let's fly under the radar. Let's knock off a Briar Priest, a Connor Pierce. Let's get in there and get our hands on a guy like Jackson Arrington or Dylan Chappell again. So, and you look at the national rankings. No one's ranked in the nation other than Jackson Arrington, and that's 126, where he's ranked number 11th. Jackson Arrington, of course, at 132. But, if I'm Dylan Chappell, I'm, hey, I think I need to be in those national rankings. I'm a 2-time Pennsylvania State runner-up. I think I should be up in there. So, yeah, I think 32 is going to be a little bit under the radar, a really good weight class, in my opinion. It may not be able to top last year Gabe Willishell and Alejandro, but it's going to be pretty close, in my opinion. Any other comments on 132, Greg and Eric, before we go up to 138? All right, I'm getting the look that let's keep it rolling. Cole Hammett, number 1 seed from Waynesburg. So we talked about Waynesburg. We've been covering Waynesburg all year, but we can't help it because they're just so solid, right? And someone tweeted us and said, "Is there any team in the state that matches up well with Waynesburg?" The answer is no, absolutely not. And depending on what comes out of the East, I just can't see anyone even coming close to Waynesburg. That's how good they are. Cole Hammett, 2-time state medalist, ranked number 2 in the state. He's your top seed at 138 pounds. Chandler Ho from DuBois, who was a state medalist last year. He was 8th in the state. He is your 3rd seed. I kind of skipped over Jake Niffinger because I kind of wanted to see if Eric was going to jump in and try to say that name for me. Eric, what do you think that is?
I don't even want to touch that name.
No, you have to. You're the pronunciation guru. What is it?
Okay, I would say that it's Niffenegger.
Niffenegger. Like
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger, but Niffenegger.
Yeah, it's just I'm afraid of that name.
See, I was
I
scared.
do not want to mispronounce that and have something come out that shouldn't.
Yeah. We're gonna stay away from Jake. We're gonna call him Jake. All right.
Yeah, let's stick with
Jake from LaSalle, Ohio. Yeah, he's 20-0 this year, so apparently he's pretty good. State qualifier in Ohio. He was a 2019 Ohio Division I state runner-up. That's right. I do remember him because he placed at the Escape the Rock. Last year, he was Escape the Rock 4th place. He was a Fargo All-American in 2018. Okay, so maybe we should get to know the name a little bit better, Eric.
You saw him before. You should have the pronunciation for us.
Yeah, but listen, when I see names, I just make up pronunciations in my head. And what the problem is,
what was my name before you met me?
You don't even want to know. You don't even want to know. But seriously, like you see, like because I'm so stuck to rankings and seeing people's names on paper, and I see names over and over again, and I say it in my head, and I think I'm saying it right. So when I go to pronounce it, I just butcher names, and you're like, how the hell can you even, I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, let's move on from Jake. Chandler Ho, Matt Sarbo, 2 Northwest regional wrestlers here who I think are looking to really bounce back or bounce into a good tournament here, because neither one, I don't think finished the season how they wanted to last year. Sarbo was a state qualifier after being a state medalist as a freshman. Chandler Ho finishing 8th in the state, currently ranked 7th. Sarbo, I'm surprised to see him down at 38, but he's there at 38. Reed Fulmer from Malvern Prep, 13-1 on the season right now. He's a guy who we've got to see multiple times last year. He was at the Surge. He was also at the POWERade last year where he went 4-2. Cole Hammett was 8th at the POWERade last year. A guy who is seated 8th right now is Amon Ol from St. Joe's Academy. He was 8th last year. And if you remember the match from Midwinter Mayhem, Eric, Chandler Ho beat Amon Ol. He pinned him. Do you remember how frustrated Amon was getting in that
Well,
match.
remember, I thought Ole was dominating that match. I mean, he was really controlling through the first two periods. It was all Ole, and then it just seemed like Ho flipped the switch, and boom, he pinned him.
Yeah, I mean it was, but I think that's how Chandler wrestles, like his older brother Colby. I mean, they maybe play a little bit of rope-a-dope, and then all of a sudden they get in and they just pounce on you. And Chandler Ho's not afraid to mix it up. I like this bracket because you have a lot of state medalists, so guys that have been on the medal stand in Hershey, Sarbo, Hammett, Ho, Ole, and then you got a fresh mix of kind of, I'll say newer talent. Lucas Capusta from Franklin Regional, Griffin Walliser from Central Mountain. I'm pretty high on him. His dad's the coach there, Biff Walliser, and he's a guy who I think is at the right weight now. He's been wrestling up at 45 and 52 this year, but I think he's at the right weight right now. I'm excited to see him mix it up with some of these seniors and juniors. Reed Fulmer is another guy who I'm excited to look for. Greg, the Whippeal, Hammett and Capusta. What do you think about the Whippeal here at 138?
It's not the deepest for sure. You mentioned Hammett and Capusta are probably the studs of this weight class. From there, you got guys who may be able to steal a couple of matches, but there's not a name that's really jumping off the page. It tells me that they're going to be able to get into that top 8.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you a little bit. There's some guys there. I'm excited to see Nate Jones back in the lineup for Waynesburg. Again, having two guys at each from each school being able to enter. Brock Lutz from Montoursville, he's in there. I agree. I think there's not a Micah Finley from Trinity, 6-2 on the year. Gianmarco Ramos, 4-3 on the year. He can battle and he's not going to quit. He's not going to go in there and lay down. But I look at this and I see Cole Hammett. I don't know if Cole Hammett's won a tournament in his high school career, and I say that because he's been in such tough weight classes, and he's always been close, right? He hasn't won POWERade. You look at his teammates like Luke Augustine, Wyatt Henson, Mac Church, Rocco. They are guys that have a lot of accolades to their names. Cole Hammett is just a grinder, a worker, and I hate to say it, but this is his time, right? If he's going to come out here and win it, I think this is it. So I'm looking forward to see Cole Hammett here. Eric, what do you think about the Southwest Regional here? Some of the guys that you get to see on a regular basis, like Ole. What do you think is the outlook for them?
I agree that I don't see a ton of guys in here that have the depth that are going to end up on the podium that aren't seated. But yeah, Ole is probably the top guy there in the Southwest region. As far as otherwise, honestly, there's not a ton there. You got some guys that may be able to make some noise. But as far as double A, I'm not seeing that much depth there. I mean, a guy like Ty Templeton has kind of bounced in and out of the Forest Hills lineup. Colton Bowman is got the Bowman name, but hasn't had a huge amount of success so far as a junior. So I mean, there isn't quite as much in there that I'm seeing that to really look at a guy and say, okay, yeah, I think this guy definitely can get on the podium from an unseated spot.
Well, Eric, you cannot say the same about 145 with the Southwest region because it gets nasty in Double A here up at 145. So let's start at the top. Wyatt Henson, returning state champion. Last year at the POWERade, he was third. Of course, you had Bo Bartlett and Sammy Hilligus in that same weight class. Wyatt Henson, number 1 in the state. Currently, he's ranked number 3 in the nation by Matt Scouts. He's heading to Iowa. He's your top seed. He's beaten Chanshire several times in the last year, and in fact, they wrestled at the Kiski Duels with Henson getting a win there. But Cher, Chans is a guy who he didn't spend more than a minute on the mat in the first 3 rounds at POWERade last year because he just came out and pinned everybody. Then you got Ty Simmerman from Derry, who's up a couple weight classes. Last year, he was 5th at 126 pounds, so he's coming up several weight classes. Henson was at 38. Shearer was at 38. Then you got Kenny Dushek from Blackhawk, formerly of Freedom. He's currently ranked number 2nd in the state. state medalist last year while at Freedom. John Altieri from Norwin, who I'm very high on. He was 6th last year at the POWERade. He's a state medalist. Carter Gill from Hickory, another state medalist. He finished 6th in the state last year. He's in there. And Cale Bacaizo from Thomas Jefferson, number 11 in the state. He's just been knocking on the door for quite a while. So, Eric, who's going to come out on top of this messy bracket in the Southwest region? Because you got Zimmerman, Dushek, and Gill and Altieri. It's kind of a mess.
Yeah, I mean, this one should be a lot of fun because I think in my mind Henson is the clear favorite, but then after that you got a lot of guys in there that can really go back and forth. I'm interested, as you said, we haven't seen Kenny Dushak yet at Blackhawk. We're kind of, and I'm not saying that he's going to have gotten any worse going to Blackhawk, but obviously at Freedom, he had some regular training partners there that he was used to, coaching staff that he was used to, all that. So a bit of a change for him going to Blackhawk. Interested to see how he does there. Ty Zimmerman, neither of those guys have gotten much mat time so far. Both of those schools were kind of late to get on the mat, and they have a few matches under their belt, but I'm sure they'd rather have a little bit more time in terms of actual competition heading into POWERade than they do at this point. And so those are the two guys that I'm really looking at from a double A perspective. But as you said, you've got Altieri, you've got Gill. I mean, this could be a lot of fun in those guys, kind of the 2 through 6 positions.
Yeah, and obviously Henson's the headliner here, but man, the rest of the supporting actors are really tough. Zimmerman's a guy who I'm interested to see how he does up several weights. 26 last year, he got up big. So it's like, how can he hang, right? Because sometimes you see that where a wrestler has to evolve and change their style based on the weight that they're at. Greg, when you look at the WIPIAL, obviously very well represented with Henson, Shear, Zimmerman, Dushek, Altieri, and Bacaizo. But there's also names that I want to keep an eye on. Bodie Morgan from Trinity, who I thought had a good Midwinter Mayhem tournament. I just there's a lot of depth, and it's hard to say like, hey, this person's going to sneak into the podium because there's not a whole lot of vacancies. There's not a lot of top 8s here who I'm saying, maybe they'll have a bad tournament. Like John Altieri, he's been very impressive, 10-0 this year, 40-7 last year. Probably one of the more. Last year he had a breakout year, made it to the state semifinals against Sammy Hilligus. So I'm really looking forward to seeing if he can hang with these top tier wrestlers. But Greg, well represented here for the WIPIAL.
Yeah, everything it was lacking from the depth perspective at 138, it's all right here at 145, and not to rehash the names, but 1 through 5 all WPIL guys. And you mentioned Bodie Morgan, who is just a freshman, highly touted coming into this one. You look at that those top 5, and to me, Zimmerman coming up from 26 to 145. The question is, how's he going to do with the weight? Dushek is very he's a hot and cold wrestler. He can wrestle super well and pull off some crazy upsets, and then he also has been prone to go 2-2 at a tournament. So he's a guy that has to come in and wrestle his best, and you have to wonder, like Eric mentioned, how he's going to do with practicing at Blackhawk, not getting the same stuff he gets at Freedom. But Cale Bacaizo wrestling very well, and then a guy outside the WPIL, we talk about I'm guessing it's his brother, but Nick Waymeyer. How's he going to do here in this tournament, coming in unseeded? So it's just going to be a lot of Wyatt Henson's definitely going to run away with it, but the rest of the weight I think is going to be fun.
Yeah, well, you definitely stole my thunder there, because my sleeper pick here is Nick Waymeyer, 10-2 as a freshman. He was in our top incoming freshman report, but we got 3 freshmen that are very solid with Bodie Morgan. Cole Bartram from Northern York is very solid, and Nick Waymeyer. All 3 were on our top incoming freshman report. So, you don't see necessarily freshmen always up at 145. So I'm excited to see how they do at 145 pounds. But like you said, I wouldn't say Wyatt Henson's going to run away with it, because Chance Shear is very dangerous and can pin just about anybody, including Wyatt Henson. But I agree, Wyatt Henson is the clear favorite here. Let's go up to 152 pounds, where, man, do we have so 52 as compared to any other weight. I don't think it comes close, me personally. 52 has Alejandro Herrera Rondon, 2-time state medalist. He was a state 4th place last year. He's up a couple weights. He was 132 pounds last year, so he's up 20 pounds. He's going to Oklahoma. Eric Gibson, Bishop McCourt. This is his last hurrah for the year before, he's getting back to the lab and getting back to work before his final season. What do you think transpires here between these top three? Because you have Rocco Welsh, Eric Gibson, and Alejandro, but then you have guys like Ty Linsenbigler, Grant McKay, Mikey Zakor, Isaac Corey, who was a state medalist. And then you look at the other guys here, Luke Moore from Chestnut Ridge, Jack Pletcher, Gianni Martini. There's so many names here that I'm saying I just, the depth of the top here is just so strong. Eric, do you think this is Gibson's year to get it done?
I don't know. I mean, we all know AHR and how difficult he can be. We've seen Gibson and Linsenbigler. We've seen him and McKay. And he looked really good in the Midwinter Mayhem. But I mean, this is just such a deep bracket. I mean, I think there are going to be a lot of close matches in here that, if you're not wrestling your best at certainly in the finals, the semifinals, and the quarterfinals, any of those guys are potential landmines where you could be in trouble. So, I'd like Eric's chances of certainly getting to the finals and setting up a really fun matchup there with Ali, but I certainly wouldn't say that it's a guarantee for him to make it there.
Yeah, I mean, we saw last year at the POWERade, Eric Gibson was able to beat Ty Linsenbigler, lost in the finals to McNeil from Wyman Seminary. You look at the depth here, and this is why I say 52 blows the rest of them out of the water. You look at the state or nationally ranked wrestlers. Ali's number 3 in the nation by Matt Scouts at 152 pounds. Rocco Welsh is number 6 in the nation. Eric Gibson is number 7 in the nation. Grant McKay is number 18th in the nation. That's 4 guys nationally ranked, all from Pennsylvania, all from the western part of the state, all here at 152 pounds. So to me, 52 is just really the cream of the crop here. We all know what Ali's capable of doing. Look at how many Division I recruits we have. I mean, Ali's going to Oklahoma. Gibson's going to Cornell. Linsenbigler's going to Lock Haven. McKay's getting offers. Rocco Welsh is getting looks. Rocco Welsh was a state runner-up last year at 126 pounds to Curtis Phipps. I just can't wait to see how this plays out. No one won the POWERade here last year. Ali was second. Gibson was second. Rocco was 4th. Linsenbigler was 5th. And Zakor was 8th. So you have guys like Isaac Corey from Montoursville, who was 1 and 2 last year, and he went on to place at the state tournament. So, I mean, again, and then let's throw in Jack Pletcher. Let's throw in the Gianni Martinis. It's going to be a lot of the quarterfinals here are just going to be fire. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You're not going to want to miss this one. Greg, you look at the Whippeal. Obviously, the 2 that stick out are Ali and Rocco. We got to see them at True Power. We got to see them at the Kiski Duels, where it was a 1-0 decision. Linsenbigler and McKay wrestled at the Midwinter Mayhem. That was a good semifinal match. And then we saw Gibson beat McKay. What do you think shakes out here with the Whippeal wrestlers, Greg?
I mean, they're so close to one another. I think the top 3 of AHR, Gibson, and Welsh are kind of, I feel like a bit locked in, but boy, I mean, that's going to be such a great semi and a final. And why 152 is so great, like you mentioned, just the top tier talent is just unbelievable. It's definitely going to be tough to crack that top 8. You mentioned Jack Pletcher. You can even say, Luke Moore from Chestnut Ridge. Can he get into that top 8? But boy, I mean, that top 8 is just so talented. And, at any given week, Linsenbigler, McKay, Mikey Zakor, they're going to beat each other up. So whoever comes out on top is going to be interesting. But you have that top 3, I think, on any given week. I mean, those guys can all win. And then 4, 5, 6, the same thing. Any given week, those guys can beat each other.
And Eric, I can't wait. I hope we see an AHR and Eric Gibson match just because of the style clash, right? I mean, Ali is so... He slows down a Mack truck, right? He's so tough from top, but he looks so much stronger than he did at True Power, and that was only a few months ago. And then you have Eric Gibson, who's super fast, we saw him at Midwinter Mayhem. McKay was frustrating him, and what did he do? He changed his offense, right? What he was working on wasn't doing anything, so he switched it up. He made a mid-match adjustment to get the win over Grant McKay. I would just love to see this style matchup between these two, because I think it would really just be a good show for the wrestling fans.
100% agree. Yeah, that's absolutely why I would like to see that finals matchup, is because it is such a difference, because Ali is just always in control. He's always in position. As you said, he's so tough on top. He's so tough to score on. And Eric is tough to score on in his own right, but he's got so many offensive attacks, and he's just going forward the whole time, those first couple periods. And I just think that'd be really a chess match to see how that goes between those two and those different styles. I did want to point out one other thing. You guys mentioned Luke Moore. If Chestnut Ridge needs any kind of motivating factor, they are actually scheduled to wrestle a dual meet on Saturday night. So guys who don't make it out of Friday are going to have to wrestle a dual meet on Saturday. The guys
are you serious?
Are going back and wrestling on Saturday.
Who are they wrestling Saturday?
Johnstown.
Oh my gosh, that's okay. That's interesting.
So yeah, they said, well, if the guys lose, they have to go back and wrestle in the dual meet. So
good for them. I like
a little extra motivation there.
I like that. Some kind of dark horses. James Toll from Malvern Prep. Same with Victor Busey from Malvern Prep. Justin Ritchie from Quaker Valley. But like you said, Greg, there's not a lot of there's not a lot of wiggle room here. We talked about Gianni Martini, and you look at Isaac Corey. He's ranked 4th in the state. Again, last year he went 1 and 2 here. He was 7th in the state in Doubleday. So, and then there's Brant Hornbat from Moeller, Ohio. Who I don't know a whole lot about I don't have much on him, but hey, he's got a pretty cool last name, Hornback. Maybe he's going to come out there and be pretty good. 160 pounds. So we lost a couple big name guys with Cole Spencer and AJ Gerardo when they went out because of their teams going out. So Ryan Wyant from Forest Hills bumps up to the top seed. Antonio Emilio is number 2. Nate Stevenson is 3. Chase Kranitz from Norwin is 4. Now, this is interesting because Emilio lost to Stevenson at the Kiski Duels, and this is when Stevenson gave me the stare down and made sure I knew that he had beaten a guy ranked higher than him. So we switched them, right? So Stevenson's number 8 in the state. Emilio's number 9. Ryan Wyant is a returning state medalist, going to Lock Haven, currently number 3 in the state. Chase Krantz is number 6 in the state currently right now. Gabe Stafford, after the top 5, it starts getting a little bit more wide open. But there's a lot of guys here so I'm shocked. I'm surprised that Enzo Merlocki from Kiski did not get into the top 8 here. He's ranked 7th in the state. He's undefeated this year. Has had a great off season, but he doesn't get in over Trevor Wyant from Chestnut Ridge, who I totally they have to be related, right? Ryan Wyant and Trevor Wyant, Eric?
Not that I know of.
That's just a common name out there.
There are a million Wyants in this area, and they all spell their name differently.
Are these two?
These are actually spelled the same. You're right, but there's Weyand, there's Weyant, there's just there's so many Wyants here.
Okay, well, Ryan is the top seed, Trevor is the 8th seed, but I really think after the 5th seed, Jack Scally from Moeller, and let's just say the 4th, because Jack Scally he's 21 and 10 this year, he's 26 and 12, so he's not very good. He's in there. I think outside of those top 4, it's going to be anyone's. I think it's going to be anyone's game here. Greg, what do you think Enzo Merlocki's thinking right now, not being seeded coming into POWERade? He's thinking, how many seeded wrestlers can I take out, right?
Yeah, it is shocking to me. I mean, I think this is the one miss that we have here is Enzo Merlocki not being seeded. I think he's going to be in that top 4, and I think he's going to have a great showing. I mean, you'd like those top 4 guys, all very tough. Emilio, Stevenson, Kranitz, all from the WPIL, but Merlocki is he's up there, and I think he's going to definitely be the guy who's going to turn a lot of heads and have a great tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you, and he was unable to wrestle at the Kiski Duels, so he was unable to get matches with potentially Antonio Emilio or even Nate Stevenson. So I think he's hungry to get back onto the mat. Eric, when you look at the Southwest region, I would say your guys are pretty well represented. Trevor Wines, Ryan, and you got someone from Carleton there. I'm not going to say his name, Eric, but you got some pretty good wrestlers from the Southwest region in Double A.
Yeah, the only thing is to me, Ryan Wyatt is so much fun to watch, but you just never know what you're going to get out of him, because he's a guy that isn't afraid to go to his back, and he'll come out of it with a big move 90% of the time, but then there's that other 10% of the time where he ends up getting pinned or losing to a guy that you don't think is on his level. So he's the top seed, and he's a state place winner. He's a Division I commit. He's really good, but there's that little bit of uncertainty that you're never quite sure exactly what you're going to get out of him. And Trevor Wyatt is a guy who, he's been kind of up and down as well. So I'm not sure about either of those. I mean, to me, we saw Enzo Merlocki, and if he's healthy and looks like he did it at the Midwinter Mayhem, I mean, to me, he's a guy that could possibly win this weight class.
Yeah. I mean, and if we look at the Midwinter Mayhem, Ryan Wyatt finished third or fourth?
Third, I think.
And because you had Jackson Spires there as well.
Yeah, he didn't even make the semis, did he?
Yeah,
I
don't think so.
I think he lost in the quarters.
Yeah, because Kiski wrestled in the other division. Right. I mean, Chase Krantz is a guy who I think, he was a state qualifier. I think he's going to surprise a few people. Damian Galantine from Central Mountain is a regional qualifier. Surprised he's in the top 8. He was 19-16 last year. But, outside of those, obviously losing Spencer and Corrado and even Spires, because General McLean was supposed to be here as well. That really hurts 160. But still, I think I like it just because, like you said, Eric, there's really not a guy, like I'm really not sure. I would, if I'm placing bets, or odds, I think there's 5 guys that legitimately could win this tournament, and I don't bat an eyelid at that. So I look forward to seeing who comes out at 160 pounds. Greg, you look at Stafford from Canamac. Last night he wrestled Stevenson. He got 2-3 stall calls towards the end there. He was pushing the pace. He looked like he just could wrestle a full another 6 minutes afterwards. Nate Stevenson just so quick on those doubles, and just kind of outmatched him. But can Stafford come in here and really upset some people?
Oh, he absolutely can. I mean, especially in a tournament where not everybody not be in the best shape, especially some teams who haven't even had a chance to wrestle yet this year. So yeah, he definitely can. He didn't do anything to really put Stevenson in danger, I would say, other than getting those penalty points. But Stevenson really controlled that match. And one thing about Waynesburg, I noticed it a lot, and I'm sure you did too, Jeff. They shoot a lot of double leg takedowns, and I think a part of that is because they avoid that funk roll. If they can get the double, they can avoid the funk. So we saw a lot of that last night with the double leg shots, and Stevenson was the king of that, getting deep double leg shots on Stafford. And but yeah, I mean, Stafford, he can definitely push the pace with a number of guys, and with this being such a wide open weight class, he can definitely contend.
You go up to 172 pounds, and this is where I think Luca Augustine is poised for a good tournament here, but he's got some serious competition. Dylan Walker from LaSalle, he's undefeated. Last year was a state qualifier. I did get to see him at Escape the Rock. I believe he was a medalist. That's right. He placed at the Super 32. There was 2020 Super 32. He placed 5th at 170 pounds. Qualifier for the Ohio State tournament twice. Kurt Thompson from Moeller, another guy who was a qualifier last year, 38-8 last year before the shutdown. Sammy Starr is 9-1 this year. His only loss is to Luca Augustine at the Kiski Duels, and that was a great match. I like this weight class because you have a good mix of different areas. So you got Waynesburg, you got a couple kids from Ohio, you got Kiski, Canamac, TJ, then you got Andrew Connolly, and Northern York's Bay Blachak from Northern York. He was a regional 6th place finisher last year. I've seen him several times this year. Northern York, now coached by Dan Nauman. So the name Nauman they're bringing, they're going to be well coached. Outside of that, you've got some other names, and one of them, and I'm not going to steal your thunder, Eric, because I know you want to talk about him, but a kid from Fraser who's a freshman who could play spoiler to a couple of these guys.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Rune Lawrence. I mean, it seems like years we've been hearing about Rune Lawrence and how good he's going to be. And, this is his chance, his coming out party. I mean, we talked about it before in the rankings. There's probably a reason that we could have had him ranked pretty high in the state to begin with. I think he's going to end up there. But you just got to see some results first, and this is really Rune's chance to show us where he belongs in those state and regional rankings. And I think it's going to be pretty high up there. I think we're gonna know the name Rune Lawrence for sure at the end of Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, how far can he go? Do you think he can win it?
It'll be interesting. I mean, from everything that I've heard about him, yeah, I think he's probably right there with Luca Augustine. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the two Ohio kids. Obviously, if you're a Super 32 place winner, as Dylan Walker is, that's a pretty good accomplishment right there. So we're gonna learn a lot about Rune and see exactly where he fits in the pecking order. But I don't think he's going to be overmatched by too many of these guys.
Yeah, I certainly don't think he's going to get, blown away, as you will, at 172 pounds. Greg, you look at the Whippeal, very, very close, wrestlers here with Sammy Starr, Matt Furman, Brian Finnerty. And then you throw in guys like Guybus from Mount Pleasant, Daniel Moore from Chestnut Ridge. What do you see from the Whippeal here outside of, obviously Luke Augustine? Luke Augustine had a great year last year. He placed at the Ironman, the Beast of the East, the POWERade, and state tournament. You don't. I mean, he hit the trifecta, if you will, there with all those tournaments. What do you expect from the Whippeal wrestlers here, like Starr, Furman, and Finnerty? Because I think Finnerty, who is Eric's favorite wrestler currently, maybe Spencer Barnhart may be in the running, but
yeah,
Finnerty is up there. Finnerty's 15-0 on the season, as cool as a cucumber out there. Greg, what's going to happen here with these guys?
It'll be fun for sure. And jump on with Lawrence for a second. Also, a WPIL guy. I hope he's on the bottom half. That's all I'm going to say. I hope he's on the bottom half because I think he and Augustine are going to be in the finals. I think that's going to happen. And I think from there, I think Sammy Starr's prime for a big tournament. I think, he's someone who wants to also show what he can do. And he showed it against Augustine, taking him to the limits. But Finnerty's going to be very tough. I expect Starr and Finnerty to finish very high here. Could be 3-4, even 3-4-5, somewhere in that mix. Furman in that top 8 for sure as well. So I think WPL is going to be well represented, but I think it's going to be Lawrence and Augustine in the final.
Wow. So you're going that far to say, yeah, I like it, Greg. You're going on a limb here. Let's take a look at the Matt Scouts rankings. So the greatest mind in wrestling, the brain. Willie Saylor has it looking like this. So Luke Augustine, number 10 in the nation at 170 pounds, even though we're wrestling at 172. The rest of the world's wrestling normal weights. We just decided to not. Dylan Walker from LaSalle is ranked 15. So you got two guys ranked top 15 in the nation. And Greg, you think the freshman from Fraser is going to hang with him. I like it. And then you got Sammy Starr coming in at number 18. So, 18, 15, 10. I like it. I think this is going to be shaped out to a pretty deep bracket. And then, of course, throw in a guy like Andrew Connolly from Malvern Prep, who is a very good wrestler. There may not be a ton of depth outside of that, but man, these are going to be some very fun matches here. And I agree with you. I hope Rune is on the bottom half because, like you said, this could set up for very nice finals. Not to put pressure on the freshmen, but let's go up to 189 pounds. We're going to bypass 182 in the national rankings because we don't have that. 189, one guy who is no doubt head and shoulders just above and beyond the competition. We were able to talk to him last week. Was it last week or this week? I can't get my week straight, Greg.
This past Sunday.
This past Sunday, we talked to Max Stout. Max Stout, undefeated on the year, just absolutely dominating guys from basically all over the place. He comes in as your top seed. He was a state runner-up last year, lost to Lenny Pinto. He was a Whippeal champion. Last year, he was 4th at the POWERade. We could see a true power rematch between he and Jack Waymeyer. Now, this is interesting because Jack Waymeyer is currently ranked number 2 in the nation at 182 pounds. Now, of course, he's going to be competing at 189. And Max Stout is ranked number 3 in the nation at 195. So this is where the wheels start kind of falling off, because the rankings, the nationally, don't match up with the weights for PA. But in that match, Max Stout really just was firing on all cylinders at true power. He ended up pinning Jack Waymire. Waymire then goes on to beat several top guys in the nation. In various tournaments, various dual tournaments. So you look at, he beat Rylan Rogers from Washington. I really like this weight class because I think you have 2 top guys, but I think Brandon Roskowski, Justin Hart, Cale Krebs from Montoursville, and don't forget a guy who has been around for, it seems like forever, and that's Trent Schulteis from Freedom. Greg, I'll start with you. Patrick Kutchember, Schulteis, Hart, Roskowski, and then you have Volt Klaas in there as well. Logan Hoffman from Bell Vernon. I mean, it's a deep weight class here, but Max Stout, I think, clearly head and shoulders above the rest of them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Max Stout, he's just been on another level this year, and expecting a great tournament for him. And Jack Waymire, I think, has separated himself a little bit. We'll see how he does against a guy like Braden Roskowski. But, yeah, from there on, I mean, Roskowski, Hart, Krebs, Schulteis, and Kutchember, I think those guys any given week can beat each other. So I think it's just going to be really great to see those guys all together and taking spots 3 through 7, because I do think there isn't a lot of distance between them. You mentioned Volklaus, Tristan Alava, Logan Hoffman of Bell Vernon down in the mix as well, Eli Makel from Waynesburg. So the WPL has a lot of depth here at this weight class of 189, but clearly the guys who are in that upper echelon have certainly shown it throughout their careers and should have a big tournament.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the tier system, I think Max Stout is in a tier by himself. I think Jack Waymire is on a tier, and then I think you got Roskowski, Hart, even Volt Klaas. Now let's look at it this way: Volt Klaas beat Hart. Hart's a 3-time state qualifier, and he's a senior this year. He got beat by Kutchember, but he beats Hart. He also loses to Baxter from Butler, who's not here. So Volt Klaas, he's in the mix there with Roskowski at the Kiski duels. So you say, like, man, I don't know how this is going to shape out. Then, like you said, Eli Makel from Waynesburg, who I think is he's deceivingly. I think he's a deceiving wrestler, because I think people look at him and say, oh, well, I can take him on. And of course, if you're going against Max Stout, maybe a little bit different. But Kutchember, another guy who last year was a state medalist. He placed 7th in the state. But I think Caleb Krebs got, you look at what he did last year, finishing 3rd in the state, currently 8-0 on the year. I look at him and I'm thinking he could be in that top 2, top 3 mix. I think he can surprise a few people. Eric, when you look at this weight class, because you got Colin Milko as well from Carlington, you got Dalton Gable from Forest Hills. Is there anyone here at 189 pounds that you think could be in the mix?
Yeah, absolutely. The guy you haven't mentioned yet is Caden Rogers from Malvern Prep.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not seated there. I think he's definitely a guy. I mean, I think Malvern Prep gets 2 guys on the podium here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of overlooked him. Go ahead. Give us the tape on Rogers.
Yeah, he placed 2nd at Escape the Rock and Beast of the East, 3rd in national preps, 2nd at Prep States. I mean, he's a guy to me that I think he belongs in that top 8 for sure. I mean, I don't know. I'm really high on Jack Waymire, so I know you're saying that Maxed Out is his own tier. I think Waymire gives him a much better match if we see that one again. So I'd like to see that rematch, and I want to see, if Maxed Out is unbelievable, no doubt, but I'm really high on Jack Waymire too. So I'd like to see that one again.
Yeah. And talking to head coach Nate Lauder from Malvern Prep, I mean, this was the big thing for him, because he knew, if they weren't going to get 2 guys able to come, a guy like Caden Rogers, who he's currently ranked number 22 in the nation at 195 pounds. His father, Mike Rogers, head coach at F&M. Caden is just, I mean, like you said, I agree. I definitely think he's a guy who gets on the podium here. I think you're right. Malvern Prep gets 2 on the podium. I apologize for missing him. But I do think Max Stout is just, just seeing what he was able to do to these other guys in the Whippeal. Yeah, Jack Waymeyer is tough. Maybe it probably will be
You
a
saw
better
when he
match.
did those results that he posted after True Power. I mean,
Yeah.
as you said, he's knocked off some really good guys since then.
Yeah, I mean he did beat Rylan Rogers. So yeah, you're right. It's the what do they call that? The
recency bias.
Recency bias. Yeah, recency bias.
I get it. I understand, but
I
have more of the recency bias because I know what Waymeyer did after that.
True. You're absolutely right. Yeah, you got another Bowman here from Chestnut Ridge. You got, like I said, Milko from Carlinton. Is there anyone else here, Eric, that you see that potentially can sneak in?
Who was I seeing there? Give me a second. Colin Milko from Carlinton is a pretty solid guy, in Double A. I mean, getting on the podium is a pretty tall task, but I think he's a guy that'll win a couple matches here.
Okay. Yeah. Greg, anybody else? You said Makel. Anybody else that you think? You said Tristan Olivia from TJ. Anyone else?
Yeah, and Logan Hoffman of Bell Vernon could be another one who could get into that mix as well.
Yeah, he's ranked 25 in the state right now. Milko's number 23 right now, so I agree. We could see, and Corey Barrero from Latrobe, 9-2. He had a good year last year, 30-14. So. Yeah, Caden Rogers, my bad. I didn't mean to forget him. It's just hard, man. Because
I'm not blaming you. I mean,
many names.
I was just happy I got to pluck someone out of there that he's not exactly obscure, but he kind of got buried in that list there because he didn't get the high seed.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm so high on Max Stout and Jack Waymeyer, but yeah, Caden Rogers, he's pretty good in himself because and I say this with Jack Waymeyer, he's truly a 182 pounder, right? Stout is solid as hell at 189, right? So
Stout.
Yes, no pun intended. He's pretty stout at 189. So I don't know if that's a difference in weight. Caden Rogers is probably more naturally a 95 pounder. So yeah, I mean I think we're definitely going to see two Malvern Prep guys get on the podium. Speaking of Malvern Prep, 215 pounds, the pound for pound best wrestler in the state of Pennsylvania, in my opinion. Nick Feldman from Malvern Prep, man, he is freaking good. And, he took it to Dayton Pitzer at the Midwinter Mayhem. I think Pitzer is really a 95-pounder, if we talked about that. He's too big for 89, but he's probably a little bit too small for 215. Nick Feldman, last year National Prep Champion. Last year he did not win the POWERade, right? Luke Stout from Mount Lebanon was able to beat him in the finals there. Dylan Bennett from Montoursville, who last year was a state runner-up. I like him. Dayton Pitzer gets the 3rd seed, so I'm kind of interested to see how that one shakes out because, Bennett was a state qualifier as a freshman, regional 5th as a sophomore, state runner-up as a junior. Pitzer was a state champion as a freshman, injured all of last year. So I don't know. Can Pitzer close the gap on Feldman, Eric? What do you think?
I mean, we saw Pitzer and we were impressed with the win over Waitman, who's the 4th seed here. That was a good match there. Pitzer for the first time out of the gates in well over a year looked really good. But man, Nick Feldman is just superhuman. Like you look at him and I don't see anybody really sticking with him. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it at Who's Number One. We've seen it all over the place that he just dominates the guys on the next tier.
Yeah, he's I mean, even at Who's Number One, he's wrestling the number 1 guy in the nation. He majors him. I mean, he's just yeah, you're right. He's on a different planet. He's in a different solar system, potentially floating around a new galaxy. Dylan Bennett is the guy I want to see where he is, where he hangs, because having a good season last year is one thing, but those Montoursville kids, I feel like they always battle hard. I think they're always pretty tough. Cole Waitman had that tough loss to Dayton Pitzer. I'm sure he's looking to get that one back. And I heard Waitman broke his nose or messed up his nose real bad recently. So I do hope he is wrestling. Nicholas Miller from Central Mountain, number 14th in the state. So you look at state rankings, Bennett is number 2, Pitzer's number 1. Waitman's number 3 in AAA. Miller is 14 in AAA. Leo Maziska from Faith Christian is number 16. He was a state qualifier last year. And then things, I think you have some more, you've got some guys that are pretty close with one another. And I say that, but Greg, Tanner O'Haley and Noah Tustin, that was a fun match last night, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think if those two guys wrestle 10 times, you're going to get a 5-5 result. I mean, I've always thought this about both of those guys. It's either they win big or they lose big.
I said
right?
the same thing on the broadcast last night.
I mean, these two guys will go for the fall every single time, and so you just never know what to really expect when those two guys step out onto the mat. But they're big match wrestlers, and they put up a lot of big moves. So it'll be interesting to see who grab. I think that 7-8 spot is really up for grabs. Just about anybody can grab that. I feel like the top 4 is a pretty clear cut. I mean, you can put Miller and Mazuka in there as well in the top 5, 6, but 7 and 8 is just going to be totally up for grabs. You got Rohaley, you got Tustin, you got Ty Banco, Trinity, you got Conrad Harold from Hampton. So you got a lot of different guys from Dogpel who could get those last 2 spots.
Yeah, and I was surprised, Greg, to see Conrad Harold get in at the 7th spot. I mean, he's had a good year this year, but he was, I think, 19 and 10 last year. Rohaley was 32 and 16. Banco, I like. Tustin, if he wrestles smart, he's tough to beat. From Malvern Prep, another Malvern Prep guy is Owen Weitmeier from Malvern Prep. He's All-American last year in National Preps, and also he's headed to Davidson. I remember seeing that. Central Mountain has 2 tough guys. Nick Miller was a state qualifier last year, but also Gage Sutliff from Central Mountain is a very tough wrestler. So they kind of have a logjam up top there. Outside of that, I'll start with you, Eric. Do you see anything else? I see TJ Border from Seneca Valley. I don't really know if there's, Colin Allman from Altoona. Yeah, he's good, but, after Feldman, Bennett, Pitzer, and Waitman, I agree. I think it may drop off a little bit, Eric.
Yeah, just from my perspective, being a guy who watches the Southwest AA, I'll be interested in a guy like Amir McCracken from Quaker Valley. I'm not saying he's going to get on the podium, but, this is a good place to gauge, how he is, where he falls in that Southwest regional ranking. So it's interesting to see a guy like him for me. Most of the others, I definitely, again, I tend to lean towards Malvern Prep guys, like you said with Weitmeier. You would think that with those some of those top 8 guys not being super solid in terms of what we've seen out of them in years past, I would think that he's going to be a guy that's probably going to be out wrestle his seed in this.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, and we're high on Malvern Prep for a reason, Eric, is because they're really tough. And you look at the team standings. Obviously, Waynesburg is probably the favorite, but Malvern Prep, especially having multiple, I don't know how they're going to do scoring if only one guy can get team points, and I'm not sure how they're going to do it, but Malvern Prep is certainly going to be up there in the mix. So. Our final weight class is 285 pounds, and it does not disappoint because you got Cole Deary from Malvern Prep, who last year was a POWERade champion. He beat Isaiah Vance in the finals. He won the Ironman, POWERade, Escape the Rock, and National Preps.
Wow, that is hitting for the cycle, isn't it?
That is, yeah. That I don't know if that's what the baseball term is, man. You really did. He hit the cycle there. He's tough. And, he gets reclassified as a junior. He was a state medalist in District 1, Garnet Valley in PIAA before going over to Malvern Prep. Big-time football player as well, so I'm sure he's looking to go to a place where he can wrestle and play football. Isaiah Vance, speaking of college, is uncommitted. He was a state runner-up last year at 285 pounds, number 2 in the state currently right now. Again, he was a POWERade finalist last year. Dawson Dietz from Hampton. I like him a lot. I think he's wrestling really well this year. 14-1. He's number 8 in the state. Last year was a state qualifier. Harrison Levines from Germantown Academy, also a guy who has some good accolades under his belt. He was a national prep 4th place finisher last year. Mitch Miles from Laurel, number 4 in the state, and he can just pin about anybody. But then you throw in Tyson Brophy, Ryan Howard from Waynesburg. I think heavyweight is a nice little weight class here. I say little, kind of jokingly, but you got the tiers of Deary and Vance, right? I think those two are on a tier in itself. They've split matches before, so you got Deary, Vance. And then I'd say Dietz, Levens, and Miles in another one. And then Brophy, Howard, McCarl, even maybe Seneca Harney, Gunnar Tribley from Meadowbrook Christian. He's number 23 in the state in AA. And a guy who I'm kind of curious to see is Chad McTicosh from Bell Vernon. He wrestled as a freshman for Bell Vernon, was a regional qualifier. I don't think he wrestled the next 2 years. I believe he didn't wrestle the next 2 years, but he came out as a senior. I like to see him. He's number 25 in the state currently right now. I'll start with you, Eric. Obviously, we like the Malvern Prep guys. We like Cole Deary. He hit he went for the cycle. Is that what you call it? But yeah. Isaiah Vance, what do you think about Mitch Miles? What are your thoughts here, 285?
Well, this was, we were hoping we were going to see all these guys at Midwinter Mayhem, and unfortunately Cole Deary wasn't there, so we didn't get that. But, we were really impressed by Vance, and, he just continues to impress. So I think, and I don't know Dietz like you do, but I think Vance and Deary are I'm not going to say they're locked into the finals, but I feel like those are pretty solid bets to get to the finals. I mean, as well as I do at times in heavyweight, you can get those 1-1 matches that come down to a coin flip one way or the other.
Yeah.
But as far as a couple guys that I haven't gotten to see yet, from AA especially, Jojo Baronic from Burgettstown is a guy that I know that they were high on.
He's a freshman.
He's a freshman. Yeah. Yeah. And they were high on him. They liked what they see out of him. And then another guy, Ian Fasano from Mount Pleasant. Again, this might not be a guy that's, going to be pushing for the finals or even getting on the podium. But I know last year they were kind of high on him. Didn't quite get the results, but he's been doing better this year. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know that he had one win that I was like, wow, that's a pretty good win for him.
Yeah, and I would agree with you when you look at, like you said, I think the top two are locked in. I think Deary just having won everything under the sun last year, and Vance, after watching him beat Nate Taylor from Brookville in Midwinter Mayhem, who he just recently committed to Lehigh. I saw that. Shout out Dyson Gold for letting us know. I think they are on their own tier, but also, like you said, Dietz is in that mix. Miles, Brophy. We saw Miles and Brophy wrestle at Midwinter Mayhem, didn't we? I think it was.
I just looked up the Fasano results, and he's wrestled like the whole weight class here so far. He lost 5-3 to Metikosh, lost 3-1 to him. He's beaten Noah Simmerman. He lost to Vance by fall. He lost to Dietz by fall. But it's just kind of Nick Murphy from Elizabeth.
Oh yeah.
Guy that he pinned.
Okay.
But yeah, don't mean to spend too much time on him, but like I said, he's a guy that I want to see that, is in those regional rankings, that is a potential guy for me.
Yeah, and really the kind of like you said with seeing some younger guys, Gunnar Tribley from Meadowbrook Christian is a guy who I'm pretty excited about seeing. He was a very good youth wrestler, only a sophomore last year, didn't make it to the state tournament, but I think he's going to have a good tournament. Greg, when you look at, and maybe you can shed some light on Mekatosh from Bell Vernon. You remember him from several years ago, Greg?
I don't, to be honest with you, but I know that he was. I don't remember him wrestling too much, to be quite honest, but I know that they're excited to see how he turns out here in his senior year, coming back after not being out for a couple of years. And between he and JoJo Baronic, I think those two guys are going to make a lot of noise here at 285. I agree with your tiers as well, Deary, Vance, and then Dietz, Levens, Miles. I think Mitch Miles is on a. He wants to prove himself after finishing second in the region, but only being a state qualifier, not coming home with a medal. He wants to get back to where he wanted to be, and so it'll be interesting to see. But I like Veronica and Metikosh. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they wrestle.
Now, what about Howard? We saw Howard last night for Waynesburg. He's a senior. Has been in the lineup for 4 years at heavyweight. Currently number 11 in the state. Tyson Brophy did have a win over him last year. Howard, I feel like is he's the senior, right? He's a senior here. I think he's a big guy. I think he's poised to do well. What are your thoughts on Ryan Howard, Greg?
I think he needs that one signature win. I think that's what he's missing. He's always been that guy who's gotten good. He's always good. He's always above 500. He's always someone who's going to come in clutch situations for the team. But as far as individual tournaments, I think he's still missing that big signature win. And so I think getting on the award stand, getting in the top 8 will be what Ryan Howard needs to kind of solidify himself. Also want to mention you briefly went over his name too, Seneca Harney too. A guy who went over from Moon to Seneca Valley. I think he's another guy who wants to show that he belongs in that top tier in AAA. So a number of guys here in at 285 that are going to collide, and I think they're going to be really close.
Yeah, and I also see a guy's named Trevor Manley, who I know from Altoona is not too bad as well. Greg or Eric, I think I interrupted you. You were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say he mentioned Mitch Miles there, and at least Mitch Miles doesn't have to see Nathan Taylor. Mitch is a great wrestler, but he's just run into Nathan Taylor twice already this year,
yeah,
and resulted in his 2 losses. So he's probably happy that Brookville isn't in this one.
You're probably right about that. We can look at the schedule here. I'll put that up on the screen. You can see what we're looking at for tomorrow, and yeah, I mean, wrestling starts right away. We got 106, and what is that through? I can't see it. It's too small.
You got your glasses on, Jeff. Come on.
Is that 145? 152? I think it's.
Oh boy! Look at that! Look at that view.
That is great video right there.
Yeah, 152. So yeah, I'm excited for tomorrow.
Everybody froze frame that one, huh?
Yeah, you're
We're gonna have fun with that later, Greg.
You're so funny. That's no one's ever gonna see that because the graphic was blocking my head. So you're not gonna see that. Yeah, I'm excited for tomorrow. It's gonna be a good day of wrestling, but Saturday is really where it's at because you're gonna have the quarterfinals and all the rounds contested. So, man, I'm tired. My voice hurts a little bit. I appreciate you guys coming on to do this preview. That was a hell of a POWERade preview. I think we spent an hour and a half, maybe more, talking about the POWERade tournament. I hope you all enjoyed it. Greg and Eric, any parting words of encouragement or anything you want to say? Thanks. Shout out to Mason Gibson as well for coming on the show.
Yeah, I'm just excited to get there. I won't be able to be there tomorrow, unfortunately, but I'll be there bright and early Saturday morning and ready for a full day at the Monroeville Convention Center.
What about you, Greg?
Yes, it's gonna be a lot of fun. To be able to get to see a tournament like this, happen. It's just great that we're able to have this opportunity, and I think it's a good primer for what's to come here in the coming weeks. So, yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yeah, and we have a lot to talk about on our other shows about the postseason in Pennsylvania because we're seeing a lot of teams shutting down. So we got a lot to talk about. For my for tonight, I appreciate it, guys. It was a lot of fun. Mason Gibson, Greg Warnock, and Eric Knopsnyder, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll see you over at POWERade, okay?
Sounds
See you
good.
there.
All right.